Are you guys ready to get sick?
That was there's an old concert of Cannibal Corpse I saw back in the day, and at the very beginning of it, Chris Barnes says to the crowd, "Are you guys ready to get sick?" And I always thought it was funny how like he had to talk in the death metal voice also, so the song would be over and he'd still be like, "This one is called ooh ooh ooh," and I'd just be like. But he doesn't talk that way, so it'd almost be like the song ends and he'd be like, "I'm Chris Barnes," you know. But I don't know why he would say his name anyway. Oh, hi, hello, welcome to Cranked and Ranked. If you haven't guessed it, we're going to be talking about Cannibal Corpse. Yes, I'm Steven, aka Old Head. With me, as always, is Mr. Eddie Sparxx. Hello, sir. Awesome. And special guest star on today's episode is a fucking fly in my room. And I probably will be trying to kill this fly throughout the entire episode. So if you hear some calamity and nonsense going on, that's what it. I can't just let it fly around, okay? And
this next one's called Six-Legged Death.
All right. Anyway, yeah. So, Cranked and Ranked is the podcast. If you're new to this podcast, we rank album discographies and other type lists in the world of rock and metal, and sometimes otherwise. And we haven't really mentioned it in a long time. But for people that are new, like I'm 43. Eddie, have you turned 23 yet? You did just turn 23.
Yeah, I'm 23 now.
So, and he's in England. I'm in America. That's why our podcast is so unique. We're different kinds of blokes, as they say over there.
We do say
yes, yeah. But Cannibal Corpse is the band we're discussing this time, and because Cannibal Corpse has 15 albums, I think Violence Unimagined is their 15th album, and because it's such a large discography. We're going to be starting off in this episode with the latter half, which would be number 15 down to number 8.
Yeah.
9. 8. Yeah. Something like that. And then the next episode will be 7 to 1. So you're starting off here with the least good Cannibal Corpse album. I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there that I don't believe that there's a bad Cannibal Corpse album. You could say that there are some samey ones, sure. But I guess you could say the same if you were ranking the Ramones or AC/DC. I mean, sure, they've got less good and more good albums. That's good English right there. But, some bands just don't really stray too far from the thing that they do. And sometimes that's okay. In the case of Cannibal Corpse, for me, that's okay. I have a couple of opinions on that, but we'll get to that as we get into the albums. But as we usually do, we start these off with where our Cannibal Corpse story begins, like where we first came in contact with this band. And for me, it was in high school back, I believe, probably 1992 was the first time I heard Cannibal Corpse, and the album that was out at the time was Tomb of the Mutilated, and the first track I ever heard from Cannibal Corpse was Hammer Smashed Face. So that is a hell of a fucking intro to this band. And it was, at that point, like I believe I had already heard Obituary and maybe Death. I'm not entirely sure. But Cannibal Corpse, Hammer Smashed Face was the first one where I was like, this is the most brutal thing I've ever heard. And of course it made me totally happy because I was like, I don't know, 14 years old or something at that point. And me and my metal friends, we were always looking for the next thing, the next level up, whether that level be brutality or progressiveness or weirdness, whatever it is, we were looking for the next thing to make us go, fuck, that's awesome. So, and Cannibal Corpse was a big deal, and I've been a fan of theirs ever since. I would probably put them, they're not in my top 10 favorite bands, easily in my top 15 probably favorite bands. Just because they're a band that I still actively care about what they're doing, and I still enjoy even the albums that they're doing today. This will actually be the first ranking that we've done where a brand new album from the artist is out right when we're doing it. Like, we haven't done one yet. So let me throw it over to you. When did you first come in contact with Cannibal Corpse? I think I know the answer to this question, but you take it away.
Funnily enough, this is not one of those times. It's not from any kind of gaming experience. It is solely looking for the most fucked up heavy shit I could find. Yeah. And I remember sitting on the bus with a friend of mine called Harvey, and we used to show each other like really heavy shit on the bus rides into school. And one day, he was kind of like a couple years younger than me, but he liked metal, so I kind of took him under my wing. And, obviously we started with like Metallica, then we upped it to Slayer, and then eventually ended up in like the death metal zone, and he went full deep dive on like the death metal shit. Yeah. More on the deathcore kind of thing for him, but to his credit, the dude liked some heavy shit, and the Cannibal Corpse was a big find for us because we were like, hell yeah, like it.
So what year would this have been?
Oh, you're talking about like 2012 maybe.
Okay.
So that was about.
So at this point, the vocalist of Cannibal Corpse is Corpse Grinder. It's weird to think of it because fans like me, I'm all like, I think of Cannibal Corpse and I think of Chris Barnes, but George has been in the band way longer than Chris was. That's awesome.
Yeah, like it's weird to think, isn't it? Like how those first 4 albums, that's Chris Barnes, and then after, but like the face that I associate with Cannibal Corpse is that of Corpse Grinder. Yeah, and he was their vocalist years before I was even born, which is crazy to think about.
I think 96 was the first album with him as a vocalist.
Yeah, it was Vile, wasn't it?
Yeah. And that's really interesting because I do think that there are, I think there are people who just prefer Chris Barnes and or they prefer Corpse Grinder and they don't want the other one. Whereas me, I like them both, but I have my preference. It's kind of like Anthrax for me, I guess, because I really do like John Bush, but I'm more of a Joey Belladonna guy. Same thing goes for Cannibal Corpse. I think Corpse Grinder is definitely a way better vocalist than Chris Barnes. But those first 4 albums are the ones that I listen to the most. But this is the kind of band that I wish that I could erase my memory and go discover them again because I just remember my mind being blown. Yeah. There's a really great video online. You can find it somewhere. I don't know if it was a Vine back when they did Vines or whatever, but it's you're looking in a classroom and somebody's playing Hammer Smash Face on a computer, and in the back corner there's these like headbanger kids, and it goes to the bass solo, and they're all like,
"Nothing's happening."
Like nothing's happening, and then it kicks in, and all the guys in the back corner start headbanging. And every time I see that, I go, "That was me and my friends in high school." Yeah, that literally, we were the ones that would always bring in the metal. Like our teachers would try to be cool and be like, "Yeah, everyone can bring in a song to play." We'd be like, "You sure about that?" This song's called "I Come Blood." Anyway, so enough of us fucking around because I'm sure we'll end up fucking around as the episode moves on. But let's start with the actual ranking, which is why we're all here, folks. Correct? I don't know where the fly went, but he's literally on the windowsill facing me. He's just looking at me. He's
the cheek of it, Steven.
He's even sort of wagging his wings in a real sort of like, you can't get me, bitch. And I'm like, motherfucker, I will get you. I will kill you. On that note, let's jump right into it. Number 15. What is your number 15 Cannibal Corpse album?
Cool. So my number 15 Cannibal Corpse album is Gore Obsessed.
Wow, I think our lists are going to be so different. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Gore Obsessed. So Gore Obsessed was in not even in the 90s. It was 2002.
Yeah, so this one for me, there's kind of a trend with my list where I tend to have a thing for the ones where they step out of like the norm. This one to me felt, very standard, and it being slap bang right in the middle of their catalog. It was just like it's still good. Like, that's the thing. When you get a Cannibal Corpse album, like that's the one thing that was difficult for me through all this, because even Alex Webster has mentioned, we make the same album again and again, but we try to make it heavier each time. And that's what he kind of elaborated on.
Yeah, the differences in their albums, especially as you get later on, they're really subtle.
Yeah.
And sometimes they are subtle changes, but sometimes they're in a way that isn't necessarily as good as the album before. So that's why things kind of you will get those albums where you go, this is fine, but if I'm going for Cannibal Corpse, this isn't the album I go for.
Yeah, upon looking into their discography, there doesn't seem to be a definitive list. There's just kind of vague patches of what people tend to think.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I noticed that every single other list, because I like to look at other people's lists just to kind of gauge, it's like a second pair of ears just to make sure, not so much did I listen to that correctly, but in a sense of I want to understand the fan base as much as possible when I approach something.
Yeah, also, we're not experts, and neither one of us claims to be an expert. So sometimes you do hear somebody talk about an album, and it will bring something to your attention that you didn't think about before.
Yeah.
And it may make you enjoy an album in a different way. So I think that's really important. That's why, I always say, whenever I do rankings, I'm all I'm not saying that I'm right about this ranking. It's more about the conversation, and really it's just, everybody's ranking is legitimate. If you're actually a fan listening to all the albums, then I think that your opinion is just as legit as ours. So
cool. So I'm gonna do my little track by track.
Do it.
Now that's the thing. Again, like I say, I don't really have anything negative to say about any of these albums. It's just the quality does increase though through my ranking, in my opinion. So, Savage Butchery is a short but nonetheless brutal intro. Hatchet to the Head. Oh, by the way, that's a drinking game with this episode. Every time I say brutal, do a shot.
How about just a drink of a beer? I don't want everyone to get so fucked up they don't. I'm gonna get that fucking fly. Sorry. I don't want everyone to get so fucked up they miss out on everything. So just get a light beer, low alcohol content, because we're gonna say the word brutal a lot.
Here I am over here with my drinking since 18 British ass.
Yeah.
Bathing in the shit. But oh man, Hatchet to the Head, this has that violent sing-along feel. It's hard to describe, but certain parts in certain songs you can imagine some serious crowd interaction with.
An interesting thing. So the same thing goes when we talked about Metallica or some other of my favorite bands. If there's ways to poke fun at them that I feel is warranted, I always find it funny. And especially with later Cannibal Corpse albums, every time a new one comes out, I just look at the song title and I just go, oh, what is this one called? This one's called Hatchet to the Head. I bet you at one point he goes, Hatchet to the Head. Yeah. Because it's almost like a given in most songs that's what's going to happen. The title of the song will be barked at some point in a very commanding way. And he does do that in Hatchet to the Head.
Oh man, Pit of Zombies. Again, it feels
Pit of Zombies.
I actually
don't think he does that on that song.
I mean, it feels like catchy for what it is, and I love it. But Dormant Bodies Bursting is a proper
Dormant Bodies Bursting. I can't keep doing that. I'm gonna lose my voice. I can't do a good death metal vocal anyway, because I do death metal vocals about as good as modern death metal vocalists do, because they're all really. Have you noticed that about modern death metal? Not all of them. Some of them are really good, but you have these bands that want to do this throwback death metal sound, and the music is always kind of cool, but sounds reminiscent of stuff you've already heard. But to a T, every single one of them, the vocals, they do that thing where they got to put their lips really small and they just go, ooh, 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 ooh. And I'm just like, you're a shitty vocalist. Get a good vocalist for your fucking band. Anyway, but there's so many of these bands that you see people talking about, this is the best death metal I've heard in years. I'm like, cool, call me again when they get a good vocalist. Anyway, sorry, that was a little tangent there.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dormant Bodies Bursting is like a proper like blasty one. Yeah. I love when they have, the variation of like slow ones, like mid-tempo groovers, and then just like shit going in there as well.
Yeah.
Compelled to Lacerate. Like
I love some of their titles so much. Compelled to Lacerate.
Yeah,
the humor is not lost on me with this. As much as I love this band, some of the song titles just make me giggle.
It's funny, actually. There was another like metalhead kid in our class who was into like the real heavy stuff, and Cannibal Corpse like is like the induction ceremony for any young death metaler. And I remember he got like really good marks on a horror story that he had to write for like an English assignment, and he attributed his use of vocabulary solely to the track listings of all of these albums. It's, like, to be honest, they've got to have like a thesaurus on hand to just be like, what's a gruesome word and how do I use it in a sentence, Yeah, Drowning in Viscera is ace.
Yep.
Hung and Bled, again, Cannibal Corpse just doing their thing and doing it well. Sanded Faceless, I mean, what a fucking image that is. Like,
that's a great title.
Like, this album pretty much delivers what I would expect from the band, but for me, this one didn't feel like much of an evolution from Bloodthirst, so it just kind of felt a bit samey to me after that one. So, like, I didn't really hear any sonic change at all. Mutation of the Cadaver is gnarly as fuck. When Death Replaces Life.
Now I'm gonna full on say that's a bad song title. Like that's like When Death Replaces Life. Dude, you mean like when you die? Like, that's just like a weird sort of. It's like trying to say something and saying it in way more words than you need to.
It's like those memes where you've got like a really well painted portrait, and it's just like, hey, and then it gradually devolves into like a ridiculous stickman figure, but right next to it, it's got like, salutations, I am projecting to you from my vocal cords that I am informing you that I am greeting you right now. And it's like,
and that one was the lyrics were co-written by Jack Owen and Paul, I'm not going to do it. I always fuck up his last name, so I'm not going to do it. But close enough.
Yeah.
So I don't know who to blame the title on. I'll blame it on Jack Owen since he left the band.
He left the fucking band.
All right.
But yeah, there's some cool vibey stuff on When Death Replaces Life, and then finally you get Grotesque, which is a brutal closer. And is a rare use of a single word in a title.
Grotesque. I mean, at this point, I was like, it's 2002. They haven't already used the word grotesque. Jeez, man. There's a lot of words they got to go through.
It does make me laugh. Like as you go through their discography, it becomes clear that they had to really up the elaborate, imagery. Because like, if you look at the track listings of say for example, like fucked with a knife and, you know, stripped, raped, and strangled.
To be fair, "Fucked with a Knife" is one of the best song titles ever. I mean, that nails it. That's like, you don't even need to like be more brutal than that.
Yeah.
It's just, that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
But yeah.
So that was what were we on?
I will say on the artwork, the cape made of faces is fucking awesome.
Okay, yeah, I really do. I keep forgetting. I was like, when I was thinking about doing these episodes, I'm like, we got to talk about the artwork of each album.
Yeah.
Because the artwork is very important. But yeah, this one is like, it's not one of my favorites, but the one thing that I do really enjoy about this one is I think out of all their album covers, the band name is the biggest on this.
Yeah.
Like takes up the whole top third of the thing. And then normally like the Cannibal Corpse logo is a little bit smaller. Cool. So my number 15 is the 2017 album Red Before Black, which when I was trying to come up with like a one that would be the last one, I really didn't know what it would end up being. I had some ideas, but I'm like, I don't really know. But I kind of just went through and listened to the Corpse Grinder stuff from, you know, earliest to latest. And as I was writing things down, it just became super clear, like what ended up being last. And for this one, it's probably because the lineup has been the same for such a long time now. Like, well, not now, but when Red Before Black came out. So you're starting from Kill all the way to Red Before Black. It's the same lineup. And except for one album, it's all the same producer.
Yeah.
So once I got to Red Before Black, I'm like, man, it's really getting harder to tell stuff apart. Because you could play me a song from any of the Corpse Grinder era ones that are produced by Eric Rutan, and I may not be able to tell you what album it's on unless it's like one that really sticks out to me as a favorite or whatever. So at this point, I'm all like, okay, it's been too long that they've been working with Eric Rutan. Honestly, I'll go ahead and jump on my thing about Eric Rutan's production. I don't like it. No. I don't hate it. There's been worse production in the world, but all of the albums produced by Eric Rutan have the same problem for me, where everything sounds too compressed. There's not any open air, and the separation between the instruments, especially like bass guitar and drums, it doesn't stand out anymore. And I realized that the way that he produces albums and the reason why the Corpse dudes like it, I think it's because it does add another level of brutality. The albums sound fucking heavy, but it always just bothers me because I'm like, I want to be able to hear things better. And also the drum sound is always some level of bad. I've always said that I feel like, especially on Evisceration Plague, and randomly in other parts of albums, it sounds like the snare drum is being hit with a dildo. Like it's a bad snare sound. In my opinion, some people probably really dig his production, but I don't. And I think that they could do better with a different producer. So at this point, once you get to 2017 with Red Before Black, and it's songs that don't veer too far away from what they were already doing, they have the same lineup, you're using the same producer, everything is pretty much very samey. Unless you're a huge fan, you're not going to be able to really tell what album you're listening to. And so that's why I'm all like, this has to go last, because even though it's a solid album of brutal fun, just take a drink, which is all you really want from Cannibal Corpse, I would like there to be more, but I'm okay with just this. And so because Red Before Black to me is the most quote unquote just this album that they did, it has to go last. So and it has the least amount of memorable songs. Like, this album's been out since 2017. I got it when it came out. I've heard it many times, but every album, like, I'll think of it and I'll go, oh, it has this one song on it. Whereas Red Before Black, I'm like, I don't really remember what was on it. And so It has to go. It has to go last, even though it's still fucking good. But yeah, that's my last one. Red Before Black.
Cool. So I'm gonna bounce right off of that because my number 14 is Red Before Black.
Nice. Well, we had some kind of matchup here.
Yeah.
Well, no, wait, it wasn't a matchup. You're number 14. Never mind.
That's Nirvana, dude. We're doing Cannibal Corpse. Okay, so Only One Will Die wastes no time throwing you in at the deep end with, some in-your-face pummeling. Red Before Black is like an awesome death metal track. Code of the Slashers. Slow and heavy is the way for me when it comes to standout death metal moments.
I do love when they slow it down. They do it really well. Like, it always makes a pretty fucking heavy song.
Yeah, I think it's because their low end is just so fucking perfect. Even in like the compressed production, you can still hear like, ooh, that riff is tasty.
They do get a pretty good guitar sound. I'll give them that, but it's just everything else. It's the mixing job and the drums and the fact that Alex Webster doesn't really stand out anymore, and I kind of want him to.
Yeah.
So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, Shedding My Human Skin, again, is just satisfying death metal goodness. Remaimed. No, that's
remaimed. He was maimed already, and you're like, fuck it, you're gonna get remaimed, dude.
Yeah, fucking fasty blasty one. Awesome stuff. Like everything's well played. It's just the production, and after everything that came before it, this album feels a bit too generic. Firestorm Vengeance is deliciously technical in its riffing. Heads Shoveled Off is brutal. What a title that is. Corpus Delicti is a swift and gnarly track.
You can delict these nuts.
I love a well-placed these nuts. Scavenger Consuming D's Nuts. It's fast and groovy in equal measure. In the Midst of Ruin, there's a cool use of a harmonic in the riff. That's probably the most unique thing on this record. Destroyed Without a Trace is a fast one, and Hideous Ichor? Is it Ichor?
I have no idea.
I just put Skull Stomping Heaviness. Fucking awesome stuff. But it's just a little bit too generic to go very high on the list.
What I think the thing is with a lot of their albums that whenever a new Cannibal Corpse album is announced, I will always stop listening to any Cannibal Corpse. Like I'll be like, even if I really want to, I don't listen to any, because then if you give yourself that space from their music and you hear their new album, it's good shit. But especially in the way that we do these rankings, where you're literally listening to everything very close together, that's when the sameness of everything really starts to not ruin, but it starts to really put albums in their lower spots, because you just be like, oh shit, man, this is way too similar to something I just heard.
Yeah.
And you know me, I like bands that try new things, and Cannibal Corpse is not that band, but like I said, I don't fault them for that.
Every now and again, they'll throw something in there that's like, oh, where did that come from? But yeah. I do see what you mean.
That is true. There's always standout moments, and then some albums have more and some albums have less. But moving on, we're going to stay modern day right here. For my number 14, we're going to go with the most recent album, Violence Unimagined, from this fucking year, 2021. And really, like, my first note says, overall, more of the same. Like, it's a very similar album. Once again, you have Eric Rutan producing again. Only this time, he is now a member of the band because Pat O'Brien went crazy. I don't know if it was drug related or stress or he's insane. Who the fuck knows? But they didn't really announce that Pat was kicked out of the band. They just announced that Eric Rutan was now in the band. And so I guess that's a nice way to do it, I guess. But that's the thing that this album, because it's the same production, should have been last, but it's not. Funny enough, because of Eric Rutan, because his production, still don't like it. But as I'm listening to this album, on the back of the artwork or whatever, it has like who wrote what songs, and every time a part would happen, and I'd go, I'd go grab it, and his fucking name would be there, Eric Rutan. So I'm like, shit, okay, well maybe they did need a little bit of new blood, and maybe Eric Rutan is the perfect guy for it because he's never written songs with them, but he knows them really well. He's produced 5 or 6 albums, 7 albums for him now. It's been a while. So I'm like, all right. And it made me kind of feel better because I feel like I hate on Eric Rutan so much just because of the way that he produces bands. Because it's not just Cannibal Corpse. Anything he's produced has that same problem with what he's done. But now as a member, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude. Like it's good shit. And once again, the differences are very subtle. If you're not a big fan, you're not going to really get them. Now, I do have to say, though, because we're talking about a brand new album, and I've heard it a few times, the last time I listened to it, all I could keep thinking is, man, I know it's never going to happen, but I really wish that Cannibal Corpse would put out a Left Turn kind of album. Like, I don't mean I don't want them to be death metal or brutal, drink. I just mean, like, I don't know, get a bit proggy. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but I wish that they would stray from the formula a lot more than they do. Anytime they do, it seems like it's a really short little thing and it's not far enough away. Just because I want to hear what they could possibly come up with. Yeah. Because it would be really interesting. So anyway, like a lot of these albums have standout tracks, and I'm going to throw out a name or two when on certain albums. There wasn't one on Red Before Black, but it's a good album. This one, the standout track for me is called "Follow the Blood," and it slows it down, and it's got a fucking killer riff in it, and I believe that one is written by Eric Rutan. So, oh no, "Follow the Blood" is a Rob Barrett cool composition, and Rob Barrett is I think Rob Barrett is a little bit underrated. Because he always gets, because before he had Pat O'Brien, and Pat O'Brien is a motherfucker on guitar. And Rob's good too, but I think that he seems like an everyman. Like he's the dude that also fixes your car, and he's in Cannibal Corpse. So he just seems like the most sort of like, I could probably go have a drink with that dude and we'd get along famously. But he's great. So yeah, overall, like this album isn't different enough to really put it higher up on the list, but at least the new blood of Eric Rutan being in there as a writer and performer, it seems to have done something for the band. And so I put it here at number 14.
Cool. So my number 13 this is a hot take. Kill.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. That is a very hot take, sir.
Now, my thing with this one is, and it could, again, be the similarity combined with the production. But this one, to me, again, I could have probably... I don't know whether or not it was how I listened to some of these albums, because... there were times where I would kind of like binge them, being as we do have kind of a deadline to adhere to, and finding little pockets of time where I'm like, hell yeah, I'm in Cannibal Corpse mode. Let's just binge like 2 or 3 albums. Yeah, I think I started to really feel the fatigue of like hyper compressed production on this one.
Yeah.
and
this was the first one. This is the first one produced by Eric Rutan.
I was gonna say, because like, right after the Wretched Spawn, you get Kill, and like The Time to Kill Is Now is a mission statement. This album, this album doesn't fucking let up. I mean, it's Cannibal Corpse.
There's a moment I was thinking about this. There's a moment in that song that I is so badass, and I love it so much. And I started to think about it, and I go, you know what? These kind of moments that we'd be talking about that happen a lot in Cannibal Corpse and other metal bands, I feel like they're only badass to people who like metal. Anyone else, it seems stupid. Because my favorite part of the song is literally everything leading up to the end. He's doing the really fast vocals, and then the very last thing you hear him say is, "The time to kill is motherfucking now," and that's the way it ends. And I'm always like, "God, that's so badass." but if you take it out of context of metal, it's pretty dumb. But I fucking love it. But they have a lot of those moments where it's just like, this is fucking awesome. And I have to remember that I can't talk about how awesome it is to somebody who listens to like indie rock because they won't get it.
Yeah. I've been there many times.
Yeah.
But like Make Them Suffer is a classic at this point.
Make them suffer.
That's literally on my notes for this album. It says Time to Kill Is Now and Make Them Suffer are classics at this point. That's so funny.
Like just the what the fuck like moments in the chorus of that. I just fucking love that shit. Like the confused, panicked sounding guitars that are like, what the fuck? Like they
throw a lot of that shit in there. That's one of the reasons why I always think it's funny when I don't know why it happens, and I guess it's from younger people mostly, where they all not all of them, but I often see people say that Cannibal Corpse is overrated, and I'm always just like, how the fuck is that? Like, they were one of the most important bands in the beginning of death metal, and they still write shit where I go, how the fuck you play that? That's badass. And I know that none of these motherfuckers can play it. It's just, I guess it goes to that thing where some people feel like in order to make a splash out there in the world of the internet, you have to have a hot take. And the hottest take in the world is disliking a big band that a lot of people like. And so kudos to you guys for trying to earn your cred somehow, but you're wrong. They are not overrated. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, necrosadistic worship, like some gnarly brutality on there.
Necrosadistic Warning is the name of the song.
Is it?
Yeah.
I
Necrosadistic Warning. You will not rest in peace.
That's the one. I fucked up.
Were you drinking when you did this?
Funnily enough, no. No, I was not.
Okay. Let's just tell everybody you were.
I'm thinking, I think I was just so battered from like the amount of
you were punch drunk.
Honestly, the amount of, like, if you boil it down to the sheer amount of information on these discs, like, you have to retain.
Yeah.
Like, my God.
It's exhausting at times.
Yeah. 5 nails through the neck is just more gnarliness. Like,
I love that one. Because it's like just five.
Yeah.
Like, that's all the nails that they had left. It's like, look, we got 5 nails. If you don't watch out, they're all going through your neck, motherfucker.
Purification by Fire is frantic and vicious. Death Walking Terror is a song that I think I'd heard Death Walking Terror prior to doing this, but I'm not certain. But I'm pretty sure I had heard it. Barbaric Bludgeonings, it does more of the modern Cannibal Corpse thing I've come to expect. The Discipline of Revenge. At the time of writing the review of this album, it feels like another one of the albums in the catalog where they just do their thing rather than do anything eccentric. They certainly go back to the drawing board and they're like, let's make a fucking face bashing your fucking skull in album. And they did do that with this one. Like, Brain Removal Device is just more gory death metal. Maniacal, Blasts Aplenty I put next to Maniacal. Submerged in Boiling Flesh, just some ripping violent shit there.
That's one of those titles where you have to like think about it. I'm like, okay, so they already boiled some flesh and then they're going to put you in it. So it's not your flesh that's boiling. It's somebody else's flesh.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be put in there, and then eventually your flesh will also be boiling. Maybe it's like they keep putting person after person in there. Like,
That's fucking scary thought.
So
man.
if they had written a song about the first person, it would just be called Submerged in Boiling Water. And then that's it. Doesn't sound quite as good.
It's not as cool. It's just as fucking horrible, but not as cool.
And then the song before that is Hold On While the Water Heats Up.
Infinite Misery has a slow, grinding riff. All in all, like, this album, for me, just felt a little bit too vanilla death metal for me to be very high on the list. Plus, the production of this record really hurts it in terms of feeling kind of peaky and compressed. And
I'm glad it's not just me.
Yeah, if everything's at the same level the whole way through, it's going to have less of an effect. Whereas if you have moments where it kind of has room to breathe, rather than not so much letting up, but just being able to exist in a space rather than just be like, fuck, this caged animal can't get out any further because it's confined, you know?
I think I would have been okay with it if they had just done it on the one album, like make a statement like this, but they did it on too many albums because it's like it's one of those things where sometimes, like, if I'm listening to a song that I've heard a whole shitload of times, sometimes I'll mentally think in my head, you know what, I'm going to listen to this song now, but I'm only going to pay attention to what the bass guitar is doing because I've never done that. But the way that these albums are produced, there's no way to do that. No. It's like you can pay attention to the guitars or the vocals. Everything else is kind of a mess.
Well, don't they play in like a ridiculously low tuning, like A flat?
They kept tuning down over their career.
Yeah, so like with that, you're going to end up eventually the guitars and the bass are going to occupy the same kind of frequencies, and it's a tricky process. But yeah,
it's true. But this is not my number 13. My number 13 is the 2012 album Torture.
Okay,
and a lot of the things that I said about, like Red Before Black, it's a lot of the stuff still there. This is still another Eric Rutan produced album that sounds very similar. This one goes lower on the list because the album prior to this, Evisceration Plague, I think is really fucking good. And this album is a step down from that song-wise. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that there's not really fucking awesome songs, because there are. Like the standout one for me is called Intestinal Crank. I love that song.
Intestines on the spool.
there's just so many great badass riffs on this album, and it's fucking good. Once again, it's a really solid album. If you take a break from all Cannibal Corpse and just listen to Torture, it's fucking good. But it's just too, in the grand scheme of things, when comparing their albums, it's too samey. And Eric Rutan's production, once again, is not great. And this was the point as a fan. Like, once they had done this album, this is where I started really complaining about the production, because I didn't really like it on Kill. I didn't really like it on Evisceration Plague. And then they went to him again for Torture, and I'm just like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And so, but I realized that I'm probably in the minority because I don't hear a lot of people complaining about the production on these albums. But, and like I said, there's worse, but to be completely honest, like, as much as people, and once again, we bring them into every single episode. As much as people like to complain about Saint Anger, I would rather listen to that production than any of the Eric Rutan produced Cannibal Corpse albums, because at least it's. Well, I guess maybe if Metallica had continued to do albums that sounded like that, maybe I'd be pissed off. But the fact that Saint Anger's on its own, I'm like, I like this. It's different. It's weird. It's cool. Whereas if they had just done Kill, and I'm like, oh, they made this brutal album all the way through that's really compressed, and it makes you feel exhausted. Cool. Let's move on to the next thing. No, the next thing is very similar versions of the same thing. So then you get to Torture, and I'm just like, eh. But it does have some cool moments, and so it lays here at number 13.
Cool. So my number 12 is Vile.
Dude, what are you doing?
Like, this is the thing. Like, I'm now looking at the list and I'm thinking
This is good. No, this is good
low.
though. This is good. It's pretty low for Vile, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But let's do it. Let's jump into Vile. The first album with George Corpse Grinder Fisher on vocals.
Cool. So it's at this point I must state, the Devoured by Vermin is fucking awesome. What a way.
Devoured. Cesspool of vermin. Devoured. Bloodthirsty rabbit devoured by vermin.
It's so good.
Yeah. I'm gonna when I edit this, I'm gonna edit our voices right next to each other, so it just sounds like we're just badass.
You got to pitch one of them so that it's like 3 semitones down as well, so it sounds.
Who the fuck do you think I am, dude? I can't. I can't do that kind of shit. I managed to put echo. Did you notice I managed to put echo on the 2 Toto episodes?
That was a nice touch. I liked it.
That's as far as my editing goes. It's like cutting. I can edit spaces out and I can add some echo. That's it.
Cool.
Vile.
Yeah. I love the chorus in Devoured by Vermin, and that breakdown is too gnarly, especially that reverb on the snare at that point.
Yeah.
Mummified, I love the transitions they do when they fuck about with like the tempo, and the fact that in 1996, an era of dry albums, they were implementing reverb on the snare in slow parts, and that makes me happy.
This is still them. This is the last album they did with Scott Burns.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, I don't think the Scott Burns album, technically speaking, the albums he did aren't the best produced Cannibal Corpse albums, but I love the way that all of them sound. And Scott Burns, we talked about Scott Burns when we talked about Death, I believe, where I was saying that back in the early 90s, you would go to the record store, and it doesn't matter what the band name was. If you never heard of the band before in your life, turned it over and it said produced by Scott Burns, you bought the fucking album. Because he just, I don't know if he just chose to work with great bands or he always brought out the best in bands. That dude was into that era of death metal, in my opinion. And this was the last one with Cannibal Corpse.
Cool. Yeah, it's just like, it makes me happy that for a time they understood the importance of space. you know?
Yes.
Perverse Suffering has some mind-blowing blast riffs. Disfigured is awesome. The riffing is gnarly. Bloodlands is exactly the slow, nasty side of death metal that I adore. Puncture Wound Massacre is short but brutal. Relentless Beating pretty much does what it says.
Yeah.
Absolute Hatred is just more gruesome death metal. Eaten from the Inside, there's a really cool melodic solo in this one and a really gnarly 6/8 breakdown feel at times. Orgasm Through Torture has the breakdown in the middle of that is one of the most beautifully ugly things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And Monolith is a final chunk of nasty to deliver the finishing blow to this one. And I'd say this is where for me the albums get interesting. Yeah. Like, cause my bottom 3 have the I've heard it already feel to it. This now is where I'm starting to put in albums that make me think, oh, there's something to this one,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I'm actually gonna just be moving one album up from you for my number 12. My number 12 is Gallery of Suicide from 1998, and this one, this is probably the album that I've listened to the least out of all. Except for maybe the last few newer ones, but honestly, like I never really thought it was that strong. And honestly, for a while, I didn't even really like the album cover, but now I like it a lot more because it's a little more. I actually really like it when Vince Locke does things that aren't just like, oh, look at this corpse with its entrails hanging out. When he does something a little bit different, I'm always like, that's kind of cool. And so this album cover grew on me, and the album grew on me as well. This is the first album with Pat O'Brien on guitar because Rob Barrett left the band. At this point, he comes back in later. And this was the first and only album produced by Jim Morris, who owned Morris Sound Studios, where they recorded all their previous albums with Scott Burns. So Jim Morris was just more like the house engineer, I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm not in love with the production on this album. It seems like it's missing a little bit of low end, and sometimes it feels a little bit light. But I do like the fact that he does include a lot of reverb. He does. There's a lot of room in this album. It just isn't. It's not heavy enough for me. And the fact that some of the songs here are not as well written, the weaker production on top of kind of weaker songs, it makes this album just kind of it's okay. Some of the tracks start to run together after a while on this one. And the big thing for this one for me is that it's my least favorite Corpse Grinder performance. Like, I don't think his vocals are that great on this compared to everything else he's done. But this one sits higher up for me just because it sounds different.
Yeah.
You play me a track and I'll be like, that's off Gallery of Suicide. I can tell. And I like, in the story of the band, I'll say that a lot, I always like an album that has its own place, and Gallery of Suicide has its own place. So it's good. The song Gallery of Suicide is great. It's more of a slower song, and a song like that how it does. But I really do think like that the main riff in that, it sounds very un-Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah.
Like, it's very open, and honestly, a lot of those things, and you brought up like, melodic solos and stuff, I really do think that a lot of those moments were owed to Jack Owen. I think Jack Owen is a guitar player who brought a little bit more, I don't know, soul to the shit, I guess, a little bit. Nobody ever used that term with Cannibal Corpse, but he does seem like he does bring elements that you could tell that he wasn't a dude that just was all about brutal music, and he clearly wasn't. I mean, he ended up joining, when he left Cannibal Corpse, he had started like an alternative rock band or something that didn't really go anywhere. And of course, he went right back into doing death metal. He joined Deicide, and now he's a member of 6 Feet Under. So how fucking good is that?
That's
he just
full
comes
circle.
right back to working with Chris Barnes. I am not a 6 Feet Under fan, by the way. I think I'm not going to shit on Chris Barnes because that's like jumping on Vince Neil. Everyone keeps jumping on Vince Neil. I'm all like, the dude is in his late 50s, I believe. And
60s, I think.
Oh my God. So it's just like sometimes dudes, like the brutality of doing that kind of vocals, and eventually your voice, some people's voices will not be as good anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be one of those people that jumps on Chris Barnes. I just don't really like 6 Feet Under overall.
I will say the subtitled Kickstart My Heart is one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
It's funny, but once you get like the 5,000th person, it's just like, that has to chime in and be like, the vocals sound awful. I'm like, yeah. You didn't need to say that. We know that. And he's fat. Yeah, okay. He's clearly out of shape. I mean, you're an asshole. Anyway, so I'm not going to be one of those people. But anyway, so let's move back to Gallery of Suicide. Good album, not a great album, but I do like the uniqueness of it, and so that's why it's here at my number 12. Okay, we're on to number 11.
Cool. So my number 11 is their newest album, Violence Unimagined.
All right, cool. That's it's pretty cool that this one got kind of a higher position for you.
Yeah, for me, I like to have like kind of a kind of like positive edge towards a recent album, because it's kind of like, maybe this one will grow on me, maybe it'll drop down. I'm just happy they're still making stuff.
Absolutely.
That's the thing. But yeah, right out of the gate, Murderous Rampage. opens the record with this fast, frantic fucker of an opener with Corpse Grinder sounding vicious with some awesome high screams thrown in. Because generally he's known more for his gutturals and the speed at which he can do gutturals, like.
Well, and the fact that a lot of times you can understand what he's saying, and the big thing that everyone brings up is that he doesn't cup the mic. He's full throating death metal it. He doesn't have to ooh his lips in order to make that sound. He was just born sounding like a fucking demon.
It's so funny though, like when you hear him speak, he's like, yeah. So anyway, we did this tour. Yeah, it's
of course.
Oh, it's awesome. You get Necrogenic Resurrection, which is an awesome.
What?
Like it's just like I love the fact that they're
they're making me go look up words.
Yeah, it's like they really bottomed out on the thesaurus, and now they're just like, okay, we need material. We need to go deep with this shit. Yeah, Inhumane Harvest. Like a gnarly song. Condemnation, Contagion. That title.
Dude, you said it like it's about a nation of condoms. It's a condemnation. Actually, I don't even know how you pronounce that now. Is it condemnation? Oh fuck! Never mind.
Condemnation, Contagion. It's just a giant COVID style pandemic, but everybody turns into rubber johnnies.
That's a very English term, rubber johnnies.
Surround, Kill, Devour is catchy as hell.
Yeah.
Ritual Annihilation, there's a decent amount of fast shit on this record, but that breakdown riff, Follow the Blood is a face ripper.
It's a great one.
Bound and Burned is more killer death metal. Slowly Sawn has a slow, nasty feel. Over Torture is brutal as fuck, and Cerements of the Flayed is just one last slow, nasty bugger to close out on. And like for an album this late in the band's career, I mean, I know it's not necessarily doing anything new, but they certainly haven't lost what makes them them.
No, and so, they still seem, you can still get the feeling that they enjoy doing this, and that's important. Awesome. Well, we're on number 11. Cool. So my number 11, you already spoke about this album, so I'll give my 2 cents on it. My number 11 is Gore Obsessed from 2002. Cool. This is one, I believe, of 2 albums produced by Neil Kernon. And of the 2, this is the lesser sounding one. But my problem with this one is it doesn't have enough bass in the mix. But once again, I do love the separation of the instruments here. It sounds really good. This is a really solid album. This is one that actually changed positions a little bit. It was higher up and then it went lower just because it just sounds overall really good. And it's got a lot of great songs, but as you brought up, this is at the point where the band was well in repeating themselves. They had their formula and they weren't really straying too far from that formula, but they still know how to work really well in that formula and make some really fucking badass songs. Like some of my favorites, Dormant Bodies Bursting is fucking great. Overall, the energy on this album is awesome. With a lot of these later albums, it just comes down to moments that stick out, songs that stick out, and this one just doesn't have as much as ones that will come at later in the list. One of my favorite moments on this album is in the very last track, Grotesque. Corpse Grinder does this build up from a lower thing to a higher one where he does like did I kill, he does this thing, and I'm always like, that's fucking so good. And that's a thing that like he doesn't do he does the higher things on every album, random songs, but he does do it and he sounds fucking great. In the documentary that you can watch online about Cannibal Corpse, he talks at one point about how every time he does the high screams, his head feels like it's going to explode, like it hurts him to do it.
Wow.
And that is a dude that like he sacrifices his body for what he does, because the fucking windmill headbanging can't end up good for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be a day where something's going to happen. I'm hoping it's just gradually it gets harder and he gets stiff and he has to have therapy. I hope he doesn't, like, snap something at some point.
To be honest, like, looking at the guy's neck, I don't think there's any chance anything's going to snap that fucking thing.
I don't know, man. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the case. He's built up enough muscle there at that point. But
I mean, if you look at, like, photos of him from years ago, his neck isn't nearly as big, so it's literally just the fact he works it like a muscle. It's just so fucking huge. Yeah.
So, but he sounds great on this album. And overall, I like this album a lot. I just put it lower down because another album with the same producer, I believe, is better. And so I ended up. A fun fact: a limited edition bonus version of this album has "No Remorse" by Metallica. Cannibal Corpse covering "No Remorse."
I think I've heard that actually years ago.
It's not great. It's interesting, but you know me. I always got to bring Metallica into everything we fucking do. But yeah, so that's my number. And we talked about the cover art. We haven't been talking about cover arts that much. Maybe we'll do a separate episode someday talking about our favorite, the best and worst Cannibal Corpse album covers or something. We can do a video version or something where we talk about those.
Okay, I'm going to do a quick rundown of all the artworks from my 14th pick to where I'm at with my number 10.
Yeah.
So should I just do...
Sure.
Okay, so Red Before Black is just like a first-person perspective of being stabbed to death, which is actually pretty kind of fucking brutal when you step back and analyze it. But, yep. Kill is more effective as like a statement rather than an art piece.
Yeah, I actually do like that because they didn't give you the same thing. And honestly, the cover, if you the actual cover that was drawn is on the inside of the album, and it's just a dude, a gross looking dude with a knife, and it's not. It would be pretty underwhelming if that was the cover of the album. So I like that they just went with "kill" in big letters because it's something they didn't do before.
Yeah, Vile has a dude tied up in barbed wire with maggots bursting from his stomach, and his giant gangrenous cock on the fucking floor.
He's been halved. Because he doesn't have any legs, but they left the dick there. I guess because whoever did that to him, they're just assholes, and they're like, we're gonna cut you in half. We're gonna remove your entrails. We're gonna do all sorts of shit to you. But you know what? We're just gonna leave your dick here, right in front of you.
Because we're not complete monsters.
I don't think they left it because they think he might use it later. It's more like a statement. That's like that's a calling card for a serial killer. Why haven't they done a movie like that? He's a serial killer. His calling card is he leaves a severed cock on the scene. We're gonna find out who he is. I don't know what the
Tune in next week for another episode of Cock Detective.
Hey, and they call it a slang term for detective is dick, so they could name the show could be called Cock Dicks. All right, where were we?
That's awesome. I was just gonna say with the artwork and stuff, Violence Unimagined. You may notice it's got like a zombie woman's face on the front of it, but like the actual artwork on the inside is the same zombie woman ripping a baby in half.
Yeah, I bought the unedited version on vinyl, and honestly, it's a cool album cover, but it's definitely not one of my favorites.
Yeah, and so here I am at my number 10. And this is an interesting piece of artwork.
Oh shit!
Because it's kind of, it looks like it's escaped from some kind of science lab and it's in a facility.
I know where you're going.
And my number 10 is Bloodthirst.
Yeah.
And so there's this like half insect creature with this horrendous fucking body and like dismembering
I think
shit.
I would probably go on record and say this might be my least favorite cover because it's just so like, okay, it's just a weird, bizarre creature, and it just for some reason aesthetically it just doesn't hit me as like, oh, this is cool. It's more like, oh, that's weird. All right.
Yeah. Wouldn't like to meet that thing.
yeah. It's just like, okay.
Instead of like, holy fuck, it's just kind of like, yeah, that's kind of scary looking.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, pounded into dust is blast beats galore.
Mm-hmm.
Dead Human Collection has some tasty crushing moments. Unleashing the Bloodthirsty. I will maintain that the best death metal is slow and nasty, and this is a damn fine example of using slower parts as well as fast shit. Like, they really hit something here. The Spine Splitter really lays in on those like slow grooves as well. And then it follows it up again with Ecstasy and Decay, and I've got here even more slow, nasty shit. This is awesome. Raped by the Beast, faster one here. I tell you what, there was a lot more sexual shit on the earlier like 90s works, like for the shock factor. Like, obviously you got fucked with a knife.
Maybe they were giving a little bit of time, and then when they were putting this album together, they're like, when's the last time somebody got raped? It was like 3 albums ago, 2 albums ago. How about a beast rapes somebody this time?
I'd love to be in like the band meetings when they discuss this shit. Because, like, clearly nothing is off the cards. I mean, they've got a fucking song called Necro Pedophile, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And it's like, there really is no limit. Coffin Feeder is another pretty speedy track with a classic Cannibal Corpse skank beat section thrown in. I love the whenever they do it, because it's kind of like, whenever they do, like, kind of the skank beat, they kind of lay back a little bit on the speed.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of something like Slayer, where they get like faster with like, you instead get, which is like almost uncomfortably slow to the point where it's like, fuck,
yeah,
fucking die, sort of shit. It really does convey what they're trying to put across here. Some of the upcoming song titles are fucking awesome. Hacksaw Decapitation is just a brutal assault on the listener. Blowtorch Slaughter is just gnarly riffage done marvelously. Sickening Metamorphosis, like the breakdown halfway into this is fucking awesome. And Condemned to Agony, again, as per usual, they give you one final blow to just fucking make sure you're dead. And my number 10, Bloodthirst. I mean, we're approaching the zone now where I'm like, hell yeah, I could put any of these on and be satisfied. But I do have my favorites.
I would agree. Yeah. We're in Banger Central already, even in episode
Banger
1.
Central.
So my number 9 is the 2014 album A Skeletal Domain.
Is that number 9 or number 10?
Fuck, I don't know.
I did number 10. I was at
number 10 then. So my number 10 is A Skeletal Domain. Sorry. Whatever number it is, where we are right now is where A Skeletal Domain lies. And I really like this album. Mostly because it's produced by somebody else. It came out. They did 3 albums with Eric Rutan, and then this one is with Mark Lewis. And I now that I've gone back to listen to these again, I'm gonna say, in my opinion, this is the best sounding Cannibal Corpse album.
I'm right there with you. Like, how fucking good does this album sound?
Yeah, it's so well done, and just the fact that you get this really great production, and then the intro to the album is the song "High Velocity Impact Spatter," which is easily in my top 10 of Cannibal Corpse songs. It's so good, and it has once again one of those badass moments that if you don't listen to metal, it's not cool at all. But the middle section where it has the riff and then you hear like the backwards build up to his vocal saying hi, and then he goes velocity impact spatter. Like every time that part comes, I'm all like, that's so fucking badass. The whole song is badass. It is a badass song from beginning to end.
Hell yeah.
So overall, the sound of the album is fucking great. I love it. The songs are great. Honestly, the only gripe that I could give this album is that, it is a little bit more of the same, like songwriting wise. It's still kind of in the lane that they're normally in. But the production really brings it all up. And honestly, I really like the artwork for this album because it's not anything gory. It's probably the only one I can think of Cannibal Corpse where it's like a landscape, like it's something where there's space in it. Like it's, and I love that about it. Like it's, and the color, the choices of colors where it's very like browns and grays and stuff. It's very cool to me. This is one of my favorite covers of there, even without it being brutal drink. But this is also the cool thing about this album for me is that as a fan, this one is a grower because it's got great songs on it, but the more that I listen to this one, this is becoming one that's like one of my favorites because I'll go back and I'll be like, there's so many cool tracks on this album. And I love the way that it sounds. And that's really important. I know that like on a lot of our episodes, I don't harp too much on production. Cause sometimes I'm like, an album is what it is. And if it doesn't totally kill it for me, then the production is fine. But in this case, because their music is so aggressive and there's so much going on in the music, you have to have the right producer to make it palatable to, I guess, somebody like me. I don't know. I understand wanting to be brutal, but that's my biggest issue with a lot of modern death metal is that the fucking production is so compressed and the kick drum is really clicky and everybody's vocals are exactly the same. And so it's depressing. But you get a band like Cannibal Corpse who's been doing it for fucking ever. They come out with a Skeleton Domain and it sounds amazing. The songs are great. These guys are just, still at the top of their game. And this album is another reason why Red Before Black is the last album on my list because they followed this up with that. And I went, oh God, okay, come on, guys. And so, well, as I'll say, I gotta say it again. There is no bad Cannibal Corpse album. There's some that are a lot better, and Skeletal Domain is one of those. So that's why it's my number.
Cool. So my number 9 is Torture.
All right, cool. So
Demented Aggression, holy fuck, is just pure chaos right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Sarcophagic Frenzy is gnarly as hell.
Gotta look up that word.
There's like certain times where I'm like, I don't know what that means, but it sounds evil and I like it. It's
sarcophagus, a stone coffin typically adorned with a sculpture or inscription and it's associated with the ancient civilizations of Egypt, Rome, and Greece. So,
like sarcophagus. Oh, I see.
Oh, duh.
That's pretty cool. But like they invite frenzy into it. Like there's just this, it's just fucking gnarly. Scourge of Iron, like the groove on that, my God.
Yeah.
Encased in Concrete, you can really hear some Slayer influence at the start.
That's a pretty brutal way to die right there. Like if you think about it, encased in concrete, like you're just you all of a sudden you can't move and you're suffocating. Like that's
Yeah.
There's no blood involved in that. That's pretty frightening.
That's the thing, and I need to... There's no better time to say it than here. Corpse Grinder is rattling off syllables like Eminem in Rap God. Like,
yeah, that's a good.
It's
That's
like
a good comparison right there.
like, because the dude can do the but then all of a sudden, like, you know, this isn't words by any means that I'm doing, but like, and I'm thinking, what? You know?
And it sounds like he's saying words though.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, he is like that. That doesn't give him any justice what I just did, but I'm just.
It sounds just like that, only like way better.
Yeah. As Deep as the Knife Will Go has an awesome usage of double kick runs to punctuate riffs. Intestinal Crank.
Yeah.
Awesome song. Followed Home Then Killed is legit. Yeah, is a legit scary sounding song. Like, just how blunt it is as well. It's like, yeah, you were followed home and then I killed you. Yeah, it's just like so fucking outright, you know. He's not fucking around there. He's just being completely honest, you know. Followed home then killed. I'd love to see an entire track listing of songs like that, where it's like, made a pot of coffee, then smashed it over your head. Like,
marked my calendar for the 31st, and then waited for that date, and then killed you.
got griefed in Minecraft, so I got in my car and went to your kid's house and shot him for griefing me in Minecraft. We need to make a whole album
Thought
of this
very
shit.
heavily about possibly killing you at some point.
We can go all day with this. The strangulation chair. Now it's at this point where we get some Alex Webster action, and all I could think is when that bass part happens is that kind of, what the fuck is even that?
Yeah.
Like, kind of moment where you're like, Rocky. You know?
I feel like at this point, people don't talk about Alex Webster as much as they should, but I think it's because it almost seems like it's a given. You know, it's like you know, like he's a badass bass player. Duh.
Yeah.
The dude fucking rules. He's like one of those people that I watch what he plays and I'm just like, God, it's like everything about it. He's one of the masters of the fucking instrument.
Absolutely insane. Caged, Contorted.
You hold on. Why'd you leave the dots out of that?
Caged. Yeah, hang on, wait. Caged, ... Contorted is more gnarly death metal. Crucifier Avenged is fast and brutal. Towards the end of this album, I kind of ran out of things to say, so I've got like my last few things, like Crucifier Avenged, fast and brutal. Rabid just says awesome.
Rabid is another fucking great one. I love that one.
Yeah. Torn Through is just one final skull fuck to go out on. Torture is, it's not anything new, but it does it well, you know?
Yeah.
And that's that one.
Cool. So now we're on to my actual number 9.
Cool.
My number 9 is Bloodthirst from 1999.
Cool.
And honestly, prior to A Skeletal Domain being released, I would have said Bloodthirst is the best produced Cannibal Corpse album. It's the one and only one produced by Colin Richardson, who Colin Richardson worked with a shitload of metal bands. And it sounds great. It's and this is one that's like really strong. It's filled with all sorts of really great moments. And it really, I don't know. I don't really care for the album cover that much. It's okay. The content of the album is cooler than the album cover to me. This one to me though, it's like it's got to be up there as one. It's one of the best Corpse Grinder albums. That you get to the point here as we get higher up on the list where I start doing that thing where I'm trying to be half and half with my personal opinion and with kind of a subjective view on the albums. And I just think Bloodthirst is really is great. It's not one that I go to as much as the ones we're going to be talking about, so ended up here at number 9. But it is a fucking strong album. I've actually heard some people say that it's their favorite Cannibal Corpse album, and I wouldn't fault them for that.
It's a great middle of the road record, isn't it? It's like it's got everything there.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a step up. Like before, this was Gallery of Suicide. In my opinion, Bloodthirst takes it up a notch. Yeah, at this point, like you said, there's a lot of repeating the same kind of words for their stuff because it's very similar. My standout track on this one is Blowtorch Slaughter. I fucking love that one.
Yeah.
If you want to make like a playlist of Cannibal Corpse songs, just listen for the titles that I say and put them together, and then there you go. If you're new to the band, maybe that'll be your introduction. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Bloodthirst is my number 9. I don't have a lot to add about it because we already talked about it, but it's a fucking cool album. So there you go.
Cool. So my number 8 and
final album of this episode.
Yeah. So my number 8 is Gallery of Suicide.
All right, cool.
So like this album for me felt like, this is something different, that kind of where's this one taking me kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. And while I will say, I agree, it perhaps lacks some low end. I love the cool vibey shit they tried out on this record. Yeah. There's stuff on here that I hadn't heard yet from them. So it was like, ooh, got a little extra, like little sauce in there. So so we got I Will Kill You. Again, it's one of those like really blunt ones that just really hammers it home. It's kind of like the precursor to Followed Home Then Killed. It's like I will kill you.
This album, you'll get to it, but this has in my opinion, one of the most brutal song titles that they ever did. we'll get there though.
I'm trying to figure out which one it is, but I think I know which one you mean.
We'll get there.
So you got Disposal of the Body. Is a short one, but it does a lot of damage. That's what she said. Woo! Sentence to Burn is awesome. Love this one. Vocals are great. Blood Drenched Execution, more brutality. Mm-hmm. Now, Gallery of Suicide, title track, has a vibey feel at the start, something that hasn't appeared in their discography at the time I was listening to it, because I did all of the albums chronologically right from the start. So it's cool to hear something different.
Yeah.
Now I'm pretty sure this is the one you meant.
Yep.
Dismembered and Molested.
Yeah.
I've literally put award for best title on any album ever goes to this one.
Yeah, that is because that's like there's certain titles are a little bit more goofy, but this is one where you gotta go, oh.
Holy shit.
You see here with this one, like, if you want to dismember somebody, sure, I'm cool with that, but then molested?
Yeah.
Like, haven't you done enough already? It's Jesus Christ, man. This is whoever the fuck, I mean, who wrote that one? That one is, that's Alex Webster there. So we'll blame it on him for the demented mind that he has, but that's pretty brutal. Drink.
I like to from skin to liquid, like that's another gnarly thought though. Like if you think of someone just like melting, it has a cool clean guitar vibey layered thing going on, and then goes into like full slow and nasty territory.
Maybe that's the part one in the submerged in boiling flesh. Like first your skin is turned to liquid, and then somebody else is submerged in boiling flesh. It's a two-parter. We didn't even know they had one.
Maybe this is just like a giant jigsaw puzzle, like it's one giant narrative, but they've like completely shuffled it throughout their career. So wouldn't it be cool if like someone figured out you put all of the Cannibal Corpse album covers together and it made one giant fucking terrifying thing?
It's gonna make one giant severed dick.
Yeah. That'd be amazing.
If they come full circle with the song titles, and they need to do one called "Emptying Out a Giant Tub Full of Melted Skin."
One last thing I wanted to touch on with Skin to Liquid as well is that big spacey snare that they included on an album in 1998, a time when big snares weren't really a thing. Like,
no,
it was like the coolest thing to have was like the smallest, tightest snare possible, like with the whole nu metal thing at the time. But like the atmosphere on this album is like, it has that unsettling vibe and it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like Unite the Dead is just fast and brutal. Stabbed in the Throat. God damn, I love when they add the reverb. Is what I got for this one.
Yeah.
Chambers of Blood has that fast. Now I am a complete and utter whore for
Stop right there.
I love songs, and I call it the Where the Slime Live approach, where you've got a slow beat with a fast double kick run under it.
Yeah.
Like that shit. Ugh. Hell yeah.
Where the Slime Live by Deicide, a band that we will eventually get to, I'm guessing. Oh, no, it's Morbid Angel. Is that Where the Slime Live is Morbid Angel?
Yeah, that's Morbid Angel. I didn't know if you were making a joke there.
No, for a second there I was. That's like once you get to the later albums of Deicide and Morbid Angel, I start to get really mixed up with things.
Where the Slime Live. Where am I at? I got Headless. Death metal harmonies are something else, man. They just sound horrendously awesome. Every Bone Broken, brutal.
There's a lot of bones. That's what to do to break every bone. There's a lot.
Yeah, like that's intense. That's some serious trauma right there.
That's also some commitment right there. Like, I would once they're dead, I'd be like, I ain't breaking any more bones. But I guess eventually you get into a rhythm and you're just like, I'm just gonna break every last bone.
There was a thing I read recently about it was like an amusement park disaster. I think it was in Australia or something, where something had gone horribly wrong, and it made me think of like a Cannibal Corpse album title, because like apparently the coroner's report had a line in it that said injuries incompatible with living, and I just thought that's a fucking Cannibal Corpse title.
Wow.
Like and it was like to do with someone had fallen into this sorry if people are squeamish, but you're probably not listening to the Cannibal Corpse episode.
So for you if you are.
Yeah, like apparently like there were like 4 people on this raft on this ride, and it flipped over. 2 of them drowned, but 2 of them got caught up in the conveyor belt underneath, driving the raft forward. What a fucking horrifying way to go. But that's officially put me off of raft rides, and probably anyone listening to this. But yeah, it was just like, I thought I had to put that in there just solely based on that. The injuries incompatible with living just reminded me of Cannibal Corpse. So Cannibal Corpse, if you're listening to this, that's an idea I'm penning. I want a writing credit, even though it was the coroner's report.
Also shredded by raft. Maybe that could be.
Yeah, shredded by raft. Flipped over and drowned. Like they've got all of those. There's so many title possibilities for like one incident. Like
they should do an album where they do kind of tamed versions of their own stuff, and the song titles are like "Had a Fall,"
yeah,
something like that.
Fell from the first rung of a ladder, like
tripped over my shoelace. then died.
Experienced mild discomfort with a pebble in my shoe.
Woke up with a stiff neck, then died.
And every song title has "then died" in brackets with like left the toast in the toaster for too long, then died.
Burnt popcorn smell in the house again, then died.
Forgot to do my taxes, then died.
The registration on my car expired.
Is this the best episode we've ever done?
That's all right. I'm crying. It's so funny. Okay. All right. Don't do it anymore. Drink some water. He's actually drinking water. We're both trying to drink water. Hopefully we don't die after we drink water. Otherwise, it's going on that album. Where were we?
Recorded a podcast, then died.
Oh, God.
Okay.
All right. We were still on Gallery of Suicide.
I think I was on Centuries of Torment.
Yes.
Also brutal.
It seems underwhelming now. Centuries of Torment. Oh, okay.
And then finally you get Crushing the Despised, which has a gnarly bass part in the intro and closes the record out. Album good. Album did good.
That would be so sad if we were that kind of podcast where we just didn't really have a very large vocabulary, and so just like a Gallery of Suicide, it's a good album. Moving on.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I've seen as well. Like there's this kind of trend in the last few years where it's kind of like, it's sort of becoming funny now to just like throw vocabulary at the fucking wall and just be like, fuck that. And it's like, how are you doing today? I'm big sad, bro. You know, it's just like everybody, you big mad, I big sad. It's like reverse evolution, you know?
I'm okay with that. It's like rebelling against rules of grammar. Which I'm
Hell yeah.
it's weird. There's a fine line between rebelling against grammar and just being really shitty at it. So it's like, I don't know where that line is. I don't know why. I mean, let's wrap this up with my last album of the first episode of Cannibal Corpse. So this is one that was a little bit lower, but then I started to think about the significance of this album, and so I decided to let it top the first, I guess it's not really first half, the first episode of our Cannibal Corpse ranking. My number 8 is Kill from 2006.
Cool.
This album marked the return of Rob Barrett, and the first with Eric Rutan producing, which is, you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I remember when this album came out, and I think the reason why it's significant for me is it almost felt like a new beginning or a rebirthing of the band, because they were. Yeah. It sounded so brutal, because the first thing that I heard off of this was they released the music video for Make Them Suffer. And at that point, I think, you know, you had MTV2 over here that was still playing metal stuff at times. And I was like, this is fucking insane, and that they're still sticking to their guns and making this brutal ass music. And just that, and the fact that, you know, they have a different production style, and the way the album cover looks, everything about this just feels like this, like it's almost like you mark another spot in their story starting now with Kill. Yeah. And I just think that there's a lot of classics on this album. We already talked about them. Time to Kill Us Now, Make Them Suffer. Great fucking songs. once again, the thing that makes this album not higher, because I do think it has a lot of strong songs, it's the production and the fact that as you get a little bit later on in the album, it's a little bit samey from stuff that you already heard.
Yeah.
But it is a really strong album. This is another one of those albums that if this is somebody's favorite Corpse album, I'm kind of like, yeah, I get it. Because it's if that's what you want, if you're literally if you want to be pummeled for like 45 minutes or whatever, this is it's very good. But like I said, I like this album on its own as the sound of it. Obviously, because I haven't talked about the album that follows this yet, I like that album better. But I do wish that they had started to switch out producers at least maybe every 2 albums, because it gets a little bit much. But yeah, my number 8 is Kill, and I think it's a fucking great album, and I'm glad that it topped this particular. Did I say it was in 2006? That's when that one came out. This particular episode of Cannibal Corpse, which now we've done. We did it.
Yeah, we did it.
We managed to get through the first episode of Cannibal Corpse, and God, my voice feels rough, man. It's really weird. Like all of the talking and all of the kind of trying to do a death metal thing isn't the thing that killed my voice. It was laughing too much. All of a sudden, my voice is just like, you need to stop, dude. You're shredded. You're shredded beyond. Your throat has been shredded with a knife. Oh, fuck up.
Talked too long, then died.
So hopefully, after you guys listen to this podcast, you don't die. Because we want you to be around for the next episode of this. That would be really horrible if somebody actually did die after listening to this podcast. Please don't let us know if you die. Okay.
At least get to watch the second one first.
Yeah. Wait. Because the next one, we're as a lot of you probably noticed. Oh, and I guess no, for you too. None of the Chris Barnes albums appeared yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a good reason for that. And so, so that's really all we got for this episode. I think we've covered a lot. We've been pretty brutal. Just get one more drink in there, just in case. Go ahead and finish your drinks now. But yeah, this has been fun, and we'll be back next week with the second half of the Cannibal Corpse discography. And I just love the fact that we did 2 episodes of Toto, and then we came and did Cannibal Corpse. I really do think that if anyone's ever going to try to explain this podcast to anyone, that's the good thing to put, is that like they did 1 episode about Toto and then the very next Cannibal Corpse. Because I would like that to be what we're known as. Like, you know, if it's related to rock in some way, and it's going to get covered. Although there are some bands, people bring up other bands like, would you want to do like Nickelback? And I'm like, I feel like I would find things that I liked about Nickelback, but it would be a whole lot of shit talking. And I don't really think that would be a very interesting episode. It would be a lot of complaining about things that other people already complain about.
I was going to say, I feel like a lot of people have already kind of covered like Nickelback and defended Nickelback and attacked Nickelback. It just feels like something that's been done. Yeah. Whereas, like, say, for example, I don't know.
Alien Ant Farm.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm going to say no to that one.
Oh, man.
All right, well, cool. Cool. We're not going to do Alien Ant Farm. I apologize. Anyway, so that's the end of this episode of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you very much for listening. Peanut Butter Platypus, to all of you out there still sticking around. You're the warriors. Come out and play. Anyway.
Clink, 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 clink.
Yeah, so thank you very much for listening to Cranked and Ranked. We'll be back in a week wrapping this up. And as usual, I'm going to throw it over to Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Little Dad!